Today we're going to show you how to install a Cappuccino Fusion Surface countertop. And like all the other countertop systems that we have available, it starts off with proper prep and with priming the surface. So that's already been done. You can see we've got our black primer down. And so now the next step in the process is to mix up our Fusion pigment. This Cappuccino combination consists of raw umber and white. So we're going to take our pigments and we're going to begin simply by just layering them in these cups. There's nothing that needs to be mixed for this Fusion pigment. All the components are in the bottle and they will interact with the hardener that we're going to use later in the epoxy. So we're just simply taking our Fusion pigment and we're alternating colors and layering them in these cups. Now we're using 16-ounce cups. You can use any size that you like, but 16 ounces just seems to work out well. And we're preparing 8 cups here. And we're going to keep filling these until we've pretty much used up all of our Fusion pigment bottles here. Everything that you need will come in the kit. And depending on the kit you choose, it'll be either 2 colors or 3 colors. So we just keep pouring the Fusion pigment into the cups until they're full, and each Fusion bottle of pigment is about 16 ounces. We're using 16-ounce cups, so if we're using 8 cups of the Fusion pigment or 8 bottles of the Fusion pigment, it should allow us to be able to get about 8 cups of the completed product. Alright, so we'll just finish up the raw umber. And there you have it. That's all there is to preparing our pigments for the countertop. So we're going to move these off to the side. We're going to let them kind of settle out a little bit in the cups over the next 10 or 15 minutes. And we're going to go ahead now and move on to the next step, which is to prepare the Fusion Flow resin to cover the surface of the countertop. And that's going to allow these pigments to be able to flow out onto the surface. So let's go ahead and get what we need and get that mixed up. As we mentioned, the next step is to mix up the Fusion Flow resin. And this is a specially formulated resin. It has just the right viscosity, and it has all of the hardeners inside of this that will react with the resins that are in the Fusion pigment that we just mixed up. So it's a 2-to-1 mix, meaning it's 2 parts A to 1 part B hardener. And then we have our metallic pigment that's going to get mixed with it, also included in the kit. In this case, it's pearl. So we're going to mix up our 48-ounce batch. So that means we're going to pour 32 ounces of part A right to there. We're going to add 16 ounces of our part B hardener. And that brings us to a total volume of 48 ounces, giving us our 2-to-1 mix. Now it's at this point that we're going to add our metallic pigment into it, our pearl pigment. And we're actually just going to eyeball this and use about half of the little jar here that comes with the kit. And then we're going to take our drill and our mixing paddle and we're going to give it a really good mix for about 2 minutes on a moderate speed. All right, so that's basically all we need to do to mix this up. It has just the right viscosity needed in order to allow the Fusion pigments to be able to flow. And like I mentioned, there's just the right amount of hardeners in this that are going to interact with the Fusion pigments and allow everything to harden. Now, we have been storing the materials, letting them acclimate at room temperature around 72 degrees. We don't want to start off with hot material. It's just going to lessen the working time that we're going to have with it. So we want to store the materials for a day or two at about 72 or so, even cooler. And we also want to be working, if we can, in those temperatures as well. It's just going to buy us the maximum amount of working time that we have with the product. So now that we have everything mixed, we want to go ahead and apply it to the surface. So we're going to go ahead and apply the Fusion Flow resin, and it's just a matter of pouring it out onto the surface like this. And we're going to use our hands to move it around. We could use a roller cover or a brush or squeegee or something like that, but I find that just using hands is actually just the easiest way to do it, and then we don't have to worry about cleaning up any tools afterwards or wasting a roller cover or anything like that. So we're just putting a thin layer on the surface, and this stuff flows really, really well. So there's nothing fancy to this. It's just a matter of getting a thin layer over top of the whole surface. We're not concerned at all about the edges right now. We're covering the top surface. Just like that. And remember, this is a self-leveling epoxy as well, so it's going to flow and cover the surface in just a matter of a few minutes. All right, so as you can see, that took a minute to cover that, and now we want to get some on the edges. It's already starting to drip over the edges here, but we want to make sure we have a nice, even, thin coat. That's going to promote adhesion, and it's also going to promote some flow for our Fusion pigment. So it's really just a matter of pushing a little bit to the edge and then just using our hand, smoothing it out, and that's all there is to it. Very, very simple. And again, we talked about working time with the product. You don't need much with this. You can see it's a very, very quick process. All right, and because this is the undercoat or the base coat, we're not worried about it looking real nice or anything like that. This is just the carrier for the pigments that we're about to apply. So I'm going to change my gloves, and then we're going to start to apply the Fusion pigment to the surface. So one of the real unique things about the Fusion countertop kits is that it allows us to very easily do our edges, and the edges have so much detail. They really add to the whole overall look of the countertop. Doing the edges is very simple. It's just a matter of taking our cup, pouring a bead of it about an inch or so away from the edge, and just going all the way around. Now you'll see what's happening here already. This has been down for 10 seconds. And look at how this is starting to flow, and this will start coming over the edge totally on its own without any manipulation at all. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking for. So we're just going to continue on with our edge. And you can see back over right where I started. You can see how it's already flowing right over the edge. So that's one lap around. Here's where we started. So we're going to go ahead and finish out what's in this cup and see if we can make it around again with another thin layer of it. All right, and there you have it. So we're going to go ahead and just let that do its thing while we apply Fusion pigment to the main part of the surface here. So we have a few options in doing that. In this video today, we're going to demonstrate how we do it with our drywall knife. This is a 10-inch drywall knife. You could use any size you want, but we find that this 10-inch one works really, really well. Now we have some videos that show us putting it down, just basically running the length of the countertop. But this kit really allows you to have some creativity. So instead of just going straight today, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try doing this in a little bit of a pattern and see what we get out of that. So it's just simply a matter of pouring a bead of it onto the cup, just like that. And that's the pattern that I'm going to use for the rest of the countertop. So I'm going to follow that pattern as I continue to add more material. So we just pour it onto the knife like that. It's really cool how you can already see the separation of the colors. But then it's just a matter of tipping the knife up and letting it flow off. And we come right off the edge. We don't always have to follow the same direction. We can start going back this way. All right, so there's our first cup. Doesn't look like much of anything just yet, but we're going to give this some time and let it develop, let it move, let it flow. And we're going to continue to build with the Fusion pigment. Now, just to give you an idea of how much this flows, it's probably been maybe 3 or 4 minutes since we completed the edge. And you remember how it was just about an inch wide bead of the material. And now look at how much it's flowed, how much it's moved and expanded. So that's what's going to happen over the whole entire surface. It's going to start off, each of these veins that we're pouring here is going to start off real thin, and then it's going to flow. And remember, it's on the Fusion Flow resin, so that's what the resin is causing the Fusion Pigments to do. It's flowing and moving, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So we're just going to continue to add the Fusion pigment. And you can see that we're just doing it very random. Look at this huge drop that we got right here. That's fine. That's actually all going to blend in and look real natural in the finished look of the countertop. You can see that the edges are continuing to develop as we take a look around the island. So that's 2 cups. We've gotten some on both sides here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take another cup and we're going to start back on the original side, and we're just going to keep filling in. We're just going to keep adding volume of the Fusion pigment to the surface. And again, each time we do it, we make sure we go right off the edge. So it's at this point that we already have 1 cup on our edge. We're going to go ahead and add a 2nd cup now. We're going to pour it right here, right close to the edge, and give it some more volume, which is going to allow it to flow even more over the edge. So there we go, and we're going to do just like we did with the 1st cup. We're just going to follow all the way around. And we have a little bit left, so we'll go ahead and we'll just finish it off. So there it is after the 2nd cup on the edges. You can see what a difference it makes. It's going to continue to fill in and develop, but now we've got the Fusion pigment flowing all the way over the edge. So typically we do that with 2 cups for the whole surface. We could add more if we want to, but you can see how that's really adding to the whole overall look of the countertop. All right, so now we have 2 cups of our Fusion pigment left that we mixed up earlier. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to continue to add more volume to the surface here. You can see so much of the countertop is already filled in. We've got our pearl base that's coming through, which is really complementing the raw umber and the white Fusion pigment. And we're not looking to fully cover up the pearl. We actually like the look of some of that coming through, but we'll add some more volume here. Check out the cells that we've got going on here. So that's just all happened naturally with all the components that are in the Fusion pigment mixed with the resins that we're using. So we're getting just some incredible detail there. This is a great product that you could also use to create artwork as well. So we finished applying the Fusion pigment to the surface. We used all 8 cups that we originally mixed up. Now at any point we could have stopped, but I felt like I wanted a little bit more color on top of the surface, so we used all 8 cups. And this is going to continue just to flow and move across the surface. You can see how it's already interacting with the metallic epoxy that's underneath all of the veins and the ribbons of color that it's produced. You can see really just all over areas like this where there's just cells forming with all the different shades, giving it that real natural stone type appearance. So we're going to let this sit overnight, and one of the things we're going to do is we're going to give it about 3 hours, and then we're going to turn on a fan, and then we're going to let that blow across the surface of the countertop just at a very, very low speed, just to give a little bit of air movement to facilitate the drying of this overnight. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to do the next step, which is to add the countertop epoxy to the surface. All right, so we're back at our countertop the next day, and as you can see, this turned out really nice. You remember we used the white and the raw umber Fusion Pigments, and we used the pearl as our base, and just what a beautiful accent the pearl adds to the whole surface. And you can see we got some really nice veins that are going throughout the whole surface. We got a lot of detail going on here, a lot of cells that were created, and you can just see how natural all of the blending of the different shades of the pigment are. So the next step in the process is for us then to now protect this, and the way we do that is by pouring a layer of our countertop epoxy onto the surface. It's an ultra clear, high heat resistant epoxy. It's a 2-to-1 mix, and we want to make sure we get a nice coat on here in order to protect the surface. So let's go ahead now and mix up that batch of our countertop epoxy. So to do that, we're going to mix, for this project here, we're going to mix 96 ounces because we recommend about 3 to 4 ounces of the countertop epoxy per square foot that we're covering. So we're going to mix up a 96 ounce batch, which means that we're going to pour 64 ounces of the A part into our mixing container here. So that should be right there at 64 ounces. And then we'll go ahead and add the 1 part of B, which would be 32 ounces, bringing us to a total of 96. So that takes us right to there. We're going to go ahead and mix it with our drill and mixing paddle for about 2 minutes on a moderate speed, just to blend the 2 components together thoroughly. That should be all we need to get our countertop epoxy mixed. Now we get the most amount of working time out of the product once we get it out of the container onto the surface. Now, in reality, we don't need very much working time with this product because we're going to spread this very fast. So the way we do it is we just pour out the entire contents onto the surface. And then we're going to take our hands and we're going to start moving it around to get a layer on the whole countertop. Very simple, very quick. And this 96 ounces will provide that 3 to 4 ounces per square foot that we're looking for to give us that really nice protective coat. So for right now, we're not at all worried about our edges. We're just trying to get that nice layer on top of the countertop. Then we'll come back and get the edges. Now some of the countertop epoxy is going to naturally start to flow over the edges, but right now we're just concerned with spreading it on the top. All right, so we're going to make sure that we get our edges covered now. So the way we do that is we're just going to push some of the epoxy right to the edge here, and then we'll just take our hand and just smooth it out just slightly. And you'll see that we're going to get a real nice coat on our edges here to get those nice and protected as well. And we'll just continue that process all the way around. All right, and so there you have it. All of our edges are now covered. So we're gonna spend just another minute or so here just kind of massaging in this countertop epoxy here, just making sure that we have material everywhere. One of the things we wanna do, because this is a high gloss epoxy, is we wanna make sure that we're looking at the surface in different angles. So we wanna get down and just look across, and you'll see how the light's hitting it. And as I'm looking now, I actually see some spots over here that I missed. So it's real easy just to now come over, just move some around. It's gonna flow, it's gonna level. So I'm looking, and I see another spot actually down on this side as well that I missed. Just come and make sure we have some everywhere. And I think now we're looking pretty good. This is a really nice combination here, this cappuccino. All right, so I'm real satisfied now with the way this is looking. And again, this is a self-leveling epoxy, so as this continues to sit here on the surface, it's gonna continue to move around. It's gonna level out over the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so. We're gonna leave it alone, and we're gonna come back tomorrow, and we're gonna see the final result of this Cappuccino Fusion Surface Countertop. So we're back here, and here's the final result of our Cappuccino Fusion Surface Countertop, and you can just see how beautiful this turned out. This raw umber and white fusion pigment mixed with our pearl metallic base is just a fantastic combination, and there's just so much detail that's shown up. We have large areas where we've got real visible cells, and we've got them interlaced with various thicknesses of veins in all different shades, tones, and colors, and it just came out really, really nice. And this is just an example of what can be done with the Fusion Surface Countertop system. And as you saw, it was real easy. We started off with some pretty easy prep. We primed the surface using a black primer, And then you remember we took our cups of the Fusion pigment and we poured out the edge first, and then we came back and we used our drywall knife and we just randomly spread the Fusion pigment across the surface. We let it sit overnight. We came back the next day. We put our clear, ultra clear, high heat resistant countertop epoxy on top, and here is the finished look of this countertop surface. So it's a project that anybody can do. This is just one of the many color combinations that we have available at epoxyplus.com. We'd like to hear from you in the comments, so if there's a particular combination that you'd like to see us do a complete video on, just put it in the comments below and we'd be more than happy to create a full tutorial video of that combination. But if you have any other questions or want to purchase one of these Fusion countertop kits, you can visit www.epoxyplus.com, and we appreciate you watching.